I've been doing that a long time. Thank you. Thank you. Well, I'd like to share a little bit about the nature and role and practice and what I do, as well as from other guys in my community. We'll begin with a trick that I made up, early, mid-'80s. This is a complete accident, really. I'd like to show you what some of my community has done with it. We'll start with this. You know, I held a world title for over a decade, and that really just gives me license to say that there are no greatest skaters. And that footage shows a little bit why, because everyone from the community comes with their own background, their own attributes, that's something you don't have. Skateboarding is very much of an open source community in the sense that we pull from a common vocabulary of tricks. We take from that and we individuate ourselves, hopefully elevate our standing by making it better, put our fingerprints on it, give it back to the community, and then they have more to draw from and we all rise together. I'll show you a little bit of how this works. So that is a basic kickflip, underflip, and doing it backwards as well. And so what you do is, by the time you have this trick down, you call it executive. It's an unthinking, it's more or less white noise going on in your head with sort of a flick. At that stage, you have to be able to crack it open and break it apart. And while I won't get into the details, you can kind of picture what's going on in a sense. You have to get your front foot back around, catch it so that the board lands on top, so it's back of you a little bit, heave it forward, as well as a few other things before you're rolling away from that trick. And so it's a lot to carry on. And so the way that works is you have to find little sort of nodes or somatic markers to hold on to and tweak it, okay? Here's another example. I don't think I have to tell you skateboarding hurts a lot, sometimes, especially with what he's doing is feeble grind. And in a sense, by its very nature, it's a relatively safe trick because if you miss the target, you go to a board slide. So the tricks, by their very nature, have different risk factors. Risk assessment is a huge thing in what we do. You learn this paradigm. We condition ourselves through immersion. You don't just master this on a flat bar or a double-sided curb. That's where you learn it originally. You don't just jump on a handrail. That'll go right out the window. You'll get hurt. You have to build up gradually. That's the nature of all this. All of it has to be embedded in you one bit at a time. Next is this notion of bracketing. You can see on that first one where he was going through the kink, he didn't push hard enough. He locked up, fell forward. Next, in his mind, he's locking down all those variables. He goes back and he's fighting off pain, and he jumps down that thing again and adjusts by pushing too hard. He overcompensates. Lastly, he runs up. Now he's got it bracketed, and then he hits the sweet spot. He rolls away. That is central to all we do. And again, the nature of practice for us, once you get to a higher level, it involves all of these attributes of being able to tune in and tune out. This is the same trick in 3 different environments. It's composed of a nose wheelie, nollie flip, nose wheelie. So what you would say are each of those would be executive. They're all unthinking, known, they're ingrained into you. Now for each of the environments, I'll tell you what's going on in my head, just firsthand. Sort of like the footage before, where the kink is all you're thinking about, likewise. In that trick, I'm going from table to table. I went through that, mind you, all these tricks, they may take 100 tries or more. Sometimes a lot more, embarrassing truth. From table to table, I went over and over, maybe 2-3 days of that. I could not make it for the life of me. Everything was right. Nose wheelie, nollie flip, nose wheelie. I couldn't roll away. All that I did to make that trick, again, white noise segmented by these so-called somatic markers, is I moved my eyes from the hole where they were naturally falling, because for timing, and I was concerned about the hole, you get hurt, and I just moved it to the landing. I shifted my eyes. Next thing I know, I'm rolling away. Same with the other tricks. I remember the tags that I pulled on We're going up, working on the heel, flipping it, and then point aim for the second one. That's the only thing I was thinking about at that stage. The rest, white noise. Lastly, it was almost just the opposite. I just remember thinking chair, 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 because you had to lean way back. The rest, white noise. You hardly remember a thing when you're rolling away except for the sound. Sometimes it takes a few feet of rolling before you even realize that you're still on the board. I think this is a good conceptual view of what an executive motor function might be, a flip book. Because to do it takes endless hours of repetition, focus on every detail. That's your practice hours, whether it be 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, whatever it is. It becomes, at some stage, a packaged whole, sort of a black box of kinesthetic code that's triggered through the sort of somatic infrastructure we have. So you flick it, and out pops fluid motion on the other end. What I've described before in the earlier, when I talk about going over that whole, what to focus on, what we do at a high level practice is you're taking page by page, you're flicking through as you're locking down the rest of the variables and tweaking each one until you find the crucial bit that will help you conjoin the other tricks to add together. That's how we create new things. Let's go back and make this practical again, back to Hollywood Boulevard. These are all kickflip underflips, different variations. I'm tweaking the first trick, half cab, nollie half cab, switch backside. That last one's good to focus on. As you guys may know, on a switch backside flip, you have to stand, it's awkward stance. And so all I was thinking about the tags, chin up, I remember, and the only way I could make that trick is having my lower body spin way ahead of my upper body. It's the only way I could generate the kind of force to throw the board back over. By the time I stuck it, I could not stop my upper body from rotating. So again, picture this of 2, 3, 4, 5 hours of this. You are going through every variable, and you're trying to chase down that last one, holding down each page, until finally you end up with that last one. Once I locked in on those two pieces, I swear, maybe within 10 minutes, I made 4 of them almost identically. That's how powerful the mind is, how sticky it is in ingraining. Now, that highlights another attribute that is maybe the most important for us when it comes to good practice to be able to do, because without this quality, it cripples the rest. And it's the ability to know when you're on the wrong track, because at some point, you're always kind of ingraining the wrong habits. And so when I'm doing these tricks, for example, 3, 4, 5 times throughout the day, I start trying this new variable, and then I realize I'm getting worse, not better. And so now I have to backtrack back to that fork and try to hope I didn't damage myself enough in the way I do it so I can go on forward and find out the next variable. That's how this stuff works, and that's how we practice. So where I'm going with all of this is that at some point, you're going to reach a level of expertise where everyone around you has 10,000 hours or whatever it takes to perfect the main vocabulary, for example, of what we do. And these are the peers, in a sense, that we have. And then there's another, this group right in particular, they're some of my favorites, because they're the ones that change skateboarding in particular, and there are plenty more. But how they do it, everyone's process is slightly different, but all of their processes have these attributes where it is this integration of a feel combined with an analytic ability to chase down everything else that might work while holding down the rest, all using these practices. So hopefully this translates somehow into what you do. I've enjoyed being here. Thank you for listening to me.